This is an interesting story. In another timeline, Jack Sparrow was captured by the Marine. One day while sailing the high seas, Captain Jack Sparrow and his crew, aboard the Black Pearl, spotted a massive ship in the distance. The sails were white, the figurehead was a snarling lion, and the name Dauntless was emblazoned across the stern. It was the flagship of the Royal Navy, and it was on a collision course with the Pearl. At the helm stood Admiral James Norrington, one of the few men who could match Jack's cunning and ruthlessness. And he had one goal: to hunt down and kill Captain Jack Sparrow. On deck, Jack watched the Dauntless approach with a mix of excitement and dread. He knew that a battle was imminent, but he couldn't help but feel a sense of respect for his adversary. Norrington was a formidable opponent, and Jack knew that he would have to be at the top of his game if he was going to stand a chance. As the two ships drew closer, cannons roared, and the battle began. Cannons from both ships fired, sending plumes of smoke and debris into the air. The decks were slippery with blood, and the air was thick with the smell of gunpowder and death. Jack, wielding his cutlass with deadly accuracy, fought against a small army of red-coated Marines. But he was outnumbered and fatigued. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, the rest of the crew of the Black Pearl came to his aid, repelling the attackers and saving the ship. But even in victory, Jack knew that he had only bought himself some time. Norrington was a patient man, and he wouldn't give up the hunt so easily. As the Black Pearl sailed away from the Dauntless, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He knew that Norrington would stop at nothing to capture him, and he needed to find a way to outsmart the Admiral. He spent weeks searching for a new hideout, eventually finding an uncharted island, shrouded in fog and legend. It was said that the island was cursed, and no one who set foot there ever returned. But Jack was desperate, and he was willing to take any risk to escape Norrington. As they anchored the ship off the coast of the island, Jack prepared to go ashore. He knew that he couldn't stay on the Pearl, not with Norrington hot on their trail. With a heavy heart, he said goodbye to his crew, knowing that he might never see them again. Once on land, Jack hurried through the dense jungle, trying to lose any pursuers. The island was dark and foreboding, and Jack felt a sense of dread creep up on him. He could hear the sounds of the ocean all around him, but he couldn't see any sign of the sea. He pushed on, determined to find a way out of the island's clutches, before it was too late. As days turned into nights, Jack's hope began to dwindle. He was exhausted and hungry, and the island seemed to be taunting him, offering him no way out. Just when he thought he couldn't go on any longer, he stumbled upon a clearing. And there, in front of him, was a beach, and beyond it, the open sea. Jack ran to the shore, tears streaming down his face as he looked out at the water. He could see the faint outline of the Black Pearl on the horizon, and he knew that he was finally free. But his joy was short. As he turned to leave the island, he saw a figure standing in the shadows, watching him. It was Norrington, and he had a cruel smile on his face. He had found Jack, and now he would bring him to justice. Jack knew that he couldn't outrun Norrington for much longer. He had to make a stand, and he had to do it fast. He drew his sword and prepared to fight, but he knew that he was outmatched. Norrington was a skilled swordsman, and he was relentless in his attacks. Jack dodged and parried, but he could feel himself tiring. He needed a distraction, something to give him just a little bit more time. Suddenly, he had an idea. He feigned a move, then dove under Norrington's guard, and grabbed hold of his jacket. He pulled it tight, cutting off the Admiral's air supply. Norrington struggled, but Jack held on tight. And as the Admiral's face turned red, Jack whispered in his ear, "You're not going to believe this, but I once stole a ship from under the noses of the East India Trading Company. They were heavily armed, had double the men of my crew, and I didn't even have a single musket shot. Go ahead, try and stop me." Then he paused for dramatic effect. "And by the way, that ship was yours." Norrington's face contorted in anger, but Jack continued. "I also started a war between the Spanish and the Dutch, robbed a Royal Navy warehouse full of treasure, rescued a ship full of noblemen from a mutiny, and led an entire fleet of pirate ships in an assault on a heavily fortified island fortress. Oh yeah, and I killed your predecessor." With each word, Norrington struggled more and more, until finally he collapsed, slumping to the ground with a defeated sigh. Jack released his grip and watched as the Admiral struggled to catch his breath. "Impressive, isn't it?" he asked with a smirk. "All the accomplishments of an upstanding Marine such as yourself." Norrington looked up at him, his eyes filled with a mixture of admiration and begrudging respect. "How did you do it?" he asked, his voice hoarse. Jack leaned down close to him and whispered, "My dear Admiral, I simply made them believe I wasn't worth their time." He straightened up and gestured towards the sea. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a ship to steal." And with that, he turned and walked away, leaving Norrington behind in the shadows. As Jack made his way back to the Pearl, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had just made a grave mistake. There was something about Norrington's reaction to his stories that had unsettled him. Could it be possible that the Marine knew about his exploits? Had he given away too much? He shook his head, dismissing his concerns. Norrington may be a formidable opponent, but he was just one man. Jack was sure that he could outsmart him. But as he reached the ship, he saw a group of Marines standing on the shore, their guns pointed in his direction. Suddenly, a familiar voice rang out. "Hold it right there, Captain Jack Sparrow." Norrington stood at the front of the group, his face grim. "I knew you wouldn't stay away for long," Jack said, raising his hands in surrender. "But I must say, I'm disappointed. We were just getting started." Norrington stepped forward, his eyes flashing with anger. "Started what? You think this game is a joke, Sparrow?" "Game?" Jack echoed, feigning confusion. "What game?" He paused for a moment, then burst out laughing. "Oh, you mean our little cat-and-mouse chase? Don't be silly, Norrington. You know, this is all just a big misunderstanding." Norrington's grip tightened on his sword. "Don't play coy with me, Sparrow. I know what you've done. I know what you're capable of." "Oh really?" Jack said, his eyes twinkling. "And what exactly do you think I've done?" Norrington took a step closer, his voice low and dangerous.